period of his life in the 1850s and 60s. She apparently wasn't his muse, because she wasn't someone who necessarily inspired him. But he describes her as a woman whom he loved in a visceral kind of way. Manet's portrayal of her shows a woman with considerably elongated legs and large, sturdy hands. The way he draws her out, the length of her body, gives her a diabolical look, like a sort of femme fatale. And at the same time, she's like a disjointed doll sitting there on the sofa. In addition to all these things, there's something else that strikes us. Now that the painting has been delicately restored, and the finished result is truly magnificent, we're struck by the transparency of the fabric, how extraordinarily transparent it is. That's also the purpose of an exhibition. It enables us to examine and compare paintings under different conditions, as well as to evaluate a painting in relation to some of its companions, from whom it may have been separated for centuries. And that's what happened to Jeanne Duval. She sat for a long time in Manet's studio, and now she has been reunited with other great paintings such as Victorine Meurent in The Street Singer, and especially Manet's Olympia.
You needed a naked woman, and you chose the first to come along, Olympia. You needed light areas, so you added a bouquet. You needed dark areas, and so in one corner you put a negress and a cat. What does all of that mean? You don't really know, and neither do I. But what I do know is that you have created a true painting, the work of a great painter. In other words, you have succeeded in transposing energetically, through the use of a special language, the truth of light and shadow, the reality of objects and creatures.
This painting was originally much bigger in terms of height, but he trimmed the story down to the essentials. By focusing the gaze exclusively on the dead Toreador in an almost cinematic way, Manet turns the scene into an irreparable tragedy. He takes a rather common incident and makes it seem almost like a genocide, or like something so immensely devastating that it creates a deep sense of sorrow that remains with you for a very long time. Manet goes from history with a capital H to ordinary little stories, to things that are more amusing and entertaining. For instance, here at Père Latouille's, this painting shows a man trying to pick up a woman. Here, the subject matter is a scene from everyday life, and in particular from the everyday life of the petit bourgeois, which served as the basic material for all Impressionist painting. This could almost be a scene out of a short story by Maupassant, and these could be two of his characters talking to each other. There are some absolutely delicious details. We have a middle-aged woman, somewhere between 40 and 50, or perhaps a little younger, but that was already quite old back then, at the end of the 19th century, when people tended to die quite young. And we have a vigorous young man with a rather duplicitous look in his eye. He has all of the traits of a Frenchman. He's a womanizer, he's jovial, and yet there's also something a little drowsy about him, like a Don Juan who thinks he's won the game, who's convinced that the woman will soon be his. In my opinion, this is one of Manet's most brilliant paintings. It shows in his ability to capture scenes from everyday life that he was a fabulous painter, in addition to being a very fine psychologist. You also have a snapshot of the waiter in the background who is tallying up the points for each of the characters. and the beauty of the light that permeates all of the figures and inundates the entire composition. As an example of Impressionism, it's absolutely extraordinary. It's a slice of Parisian life, a scene that can be found in Maupassant's novels, as well as in movies by Truffaut, and even more so by Renoir.
Et vous, chère madame, comment vous appelez-vous?
Oh, c'est bien indiscret. Mais pourquoi me demandez-vous ça?
Pour vous faire la cour?
Oh! Eh bien, devinez.
Je donne ma langue au chat.
Juliette.
Eh bien, moi, je m'appelle Roméo.
C'est marrant, vous vous appelez Rodolphe.
Oui, mais en ce moment, je préfère m'appeler Roméo.
Oh, qu'il est amusant. Vous m'avez fait cette espèce d'idée-là.
Manet, the inventor of a modernity that the 19th century did not understand, has defied time and is able to establish a dialogue with modern-day viewers who are captivated by an artistic vision that is as powerful as it is unique. Behind the scenes, once again, to discover this time the secret proceedings of the Acquisitions Committee.
That must be it. We should have the Pêche collection, the works from the Orangerie, a vase, and the Suze foundry. We've got the archives from the Mathurin Pêche lot, okay. Valentin, yes. There's also the commemorative cup by Strobel and Felger's covered pot. So we should have almost everything.
Presque bon. On y va?
Okay, let's go.
C'est bon.
An inventory has just been made of the museum's storerooms, containing a selection of rare and exclusive objects from the 19th century. Furniture, paintings, photographs, sculptures brought in by art dealers, and which Orsay's curators would like to incorporate into the permanent collection.
Merci beaucoup.
Orsay is constantly expanding its collections. Several times a year, a committee of people from the art world, headed by the president of the museum, meets to take a collective vote, a very private ritual. Prices are a highly guarded secret that is held in the room where well-to-do travelers used to go 100 years ago to unwind, in the smoking lounge of the former Orsay Hotel.
Are there 5 combs?
Yes.
Those are the 5 horn combs by Paul Folot. They're gorgeous. Do we have all 5 combs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here they're unwrapping Jacques Hermand's 9 albums on the World's Fair. You're unwrapping, I think, the enamel portrait of Ernest Renan. Right? Okay.
This is a painting that dates from 1897 by Félix Vallotton. It's a very interesting piece for many reasons. When it was shown at an exhibition in 1910, it was called A Scene at the Gymnasium. But most of the specialists, in fact, agree that the scene takes place in a brothel, and that it might possibly be one of the most famous Parisian brothels, or houses of tolerance, as they were known, the brothel on Chabanais Street, which is today right next to the National Library. It would be an absolutely marvelous acquisition for the Musée d'Orsay's collections. It's a painting that is both amusing and revelatory of the artist's synthesist period, as well as of the influence of Japanese art on his work, since Vallotton was one of the artists who was most interested in Japanese art at the time. We hope you will fully support our desire to include this painting in the museum's collections. Are there any questions?
Has it been torn down?
The brothel? I think so. I mean, I don't think it's still open. It's probably been turned into a...
The building still exists?
We haven't done any research yet, but Isabelle Kahn will be in charge of that. I do have a few pictures here.
It would be interesting if it turns out to be true that it's a brothel scene. It's a beautiful painting.
Next, we have a commemorative wedding cup by Max Strobel, as we move on to a style that's resolutely Jugendstil, or rather to the historicist style, the German neo-Merovingian.
It comes from the German market, and it is very finely decorated with spirals of cabochon gemstones. This is a wedding cup, and based on the dates 1859-1909, it was evidently